We're live? Yeah, we're live.
Okay, 7 o'clock, we're going to order this meeting of the Valley Center Planning and Zoning Board for October 25th. I want to welcome everybody here. A couple things I'll start with real quick, and then I'll come back to it. Please make sure, and I think most of you did, signed in if you didn't get a chance to. I suspect most of you here for one item. We've got 3 public hearing items, 4 tonight. The one that I suspect most people are here for is the 4th item. And I'll go back over this, but when we get to that point, we'll talk about the purpose, why we're here, what the item's about. Anybody wants to speak on that item, we'll have an opportunity at that point. We will have a time limit for each person, but I'll come back to that. I just kind of will let you know a little bit about how this meeting works. And so I think with that, we'll start with the roll call, please.
Gary Jansen,
Here.
Paul Springer,
Here.
Steve Conway,
Here.
Brian Shelton,
Here.
Rick Schellenberger,
Here.
Scott Phillips,
Here.
Dalton Wilson.
Here.
Thank you, Ryan. Before I forget, I do want to recognize that Mayor Cicerello, Council Members Anderson and Wilson are here, so thank you for joining us. Everybody had a chance to look at the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is approval of the draft minutes from the September 26th meeting. Are there any questions, comments, or addition to the draft minutes? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any communications, Ryan? Okay, we're going to move on to our first item on the public hearing. This is review of LS 2023-04 application of Daniel Houston pursuant to City Code 1609, who is petitioning for a lot split involving the splitting of property the applicant owns and is currently addressed as 5219 West 77th Street. Ryan, have at it.
All right, great. Well, welcome everyone to tonight's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. We got a full agenda and a full house, so excited to be here. Again, this lot split is for property on the western side of Valley Center off of 77th Street. Currently, this parcel is just over 5.5 acres. The current property owner, Mr. Daniel Houston, is requesting this lot split to go from 1 lot to 2. And in the staff report, you do have a copy of the official lot split survey done by Kansas licensed surveyor, Mr. Donald Armstrong. City staff does recommend approval of this lot split application. What you have probably noticed is that normally this is a little different. As you know, we normally do not approve lot splits that do not have publicly dedicated access to a publicly dedicated right-of-way. However, this has been mitigated in the fact that there is an existing egress-ingress easement that is shown on the lot split documentation itself. And so the intent is for Mr. Houston to sell what is labeled as Parcel B, a little over 2 acres, to somebody else to build a single-family home. That new home will connect to that existing private driveway through that easement that then connects to 77th Street, which is the publicly dedicated street. So again, this is a little different than what we normally have, where each of the new lots in a lot split has direct frontage onto a publicly dedicated street, but that is handled and taken care of and addressed through the existing easement. And so again, I'll stand for questions. I would also note that the applicant's realtor is in the audience this evening to answer any questions as well. But I'm happy to stand and answer any questions at this time. But again, city staff does recommend approval of this lot split application. Public notice requirements were met with letters sent to the surrounding property owners, as well as a public notice in the Ark Valley News. And there were no protests, no questions from the public received regarding this lot split application.
Thank you, Ryan. It's 7:04. We're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there any questions from the board first before we start it? Okay, at this time with the public hearing open, is there anyone here who would like to speak on this particular item, including a representative for the applicant? Anybody who comes to the podium, please give us your name and address.
My name is Tom Bartell, Top Dog Realty.
My office is at 226 West Main, Valley Center, within the beautiful Valley Center downtown district. The key issue I just want to bring to light on this lot split is there are several homes that are currently using this private drive that are already there. So it's not like this dedicated road is just going to this parcel B. There's actually 3 additional homes that use this private drive that are already existing. They are actually in Sedgwick County, not in Valley Center. So this is the very west edge of the city limits of Valley Center.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, it's 7:06 and we'll close the public hearing and return the discussion to the board. Anybody have any questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I would move, based on city staff recommendations, public comments, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board, I make a motion to approve LS 2023-04.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Item number 2 is review of SD 2023-01, application of Lou Robelli pursuant to City Code 1604's petitioning for approval of a final plat for land located southeast of the intersection of 93rd Street North and Meridian. Ryan, I think we heard the preliminary plat last meeting,
Yes,
correct?
that is correct. Yeah. So you as the board did review and approve the preliminary plat during last month's board meeting. And then before you this evening is the final plat. There were a few minor revisions and changes between the preliminary plat and the final plat, but again, that has been provided to you in the staff report. City staff does recommend approval of this final plat. And this will be in conjunction with the next rezoning application that you'll hear in just a few minutes. But again, this is the land southeast of 93rd Street and Meridian. This will create a number of new residential lots as well as commercial lots. And it does include the property on which the new aquatic and recreation center is being built at this time. And so Brent is pulling up the map again of this area. So it contains all of this area here. I will tell you that we are still, there are still a couple of revisions to this final plat. It's mainly just wording and a couple of access controls. And so this will change slightly just in terms of the last page on the signature page, and then some access controls do need to be adjusted. We will handle that administratively through the city staff review team. Along with that, we are still, the city engineer has requested some further information on a traffic impact study for the intersection of Sunflower Drive and 93rd Street on the northwest area of this plat. So again, city staff review team is still recommending approval of this final plat contingent on those final revisions being made. What will happen is those revisions will be made and approved by the city staff review team. And then the final plat will be printed on the large Mylar. Gary's signature will be collected as well as mine. And then this will go to city council at their, for review and approval at their November 7th city council meeting. So again, we are recommending approval of this new subdivision. And again, very much looking forward to seeing this development continue in between our middle school and high school. It'll be a great addition to the community, as well as we discussed during the preliminary plat, will definitely help alleviate a lot of flooding issues that are currently experienced on the west side of Meridian. With us this evening to represent the applicant, we do have Anthony Kurji from SEH, who will stand for any questions, along with myself in regards to the final plat and the next rezoning application.
Thank you, Ryan. 7:09, we'll open the public hearing. Are there any questions from the board to begin with? Seeing none, is there anybody in the public who would like to speak on this item? Agent for the applicant, anything to add? I think we covered this quite a bit last week.
We did, yes.
I know there was one adjacent property owner that was in the audience, and I think we got all those questions addressed at that time.
I think so too, yes.
Okay. Mr. City Administrator is sneaking up behind you.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. Happy Wednesday. I did want to also reference, I think this is a great opportunity to let the folks know, this subdivision is really unique. We actually worked with the school district and USD 262, and actually every school got an opportunity to name one of the streets and also the actual subdivision itself. And so, with this close proximity in between the middle school and high school, city staff did take it upon ourselves to ask if the school district wanted to be involved, which they jumped and they're eager to have the opportunity. So a lot of our young citizens here in Valley Center were able to name streets, and so that's something that they'll be able to carry on as they continue their education here in 262. We do plan to have some type of ceremony and celebration, of course, with all those schools that did participate. So I did want to make sure that we recognized the participation from our youth in our community. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you for that, Brent. Appreciate hearing that. Anybody else from the public who'd like to speak on this item? If not, 7-Eleven, we'll close the public hearing and.
Question.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
Hey, Ryan, help me understand again, what are the slight revisions that are to come on the plat?
So if you look on Brent, if you can zoom in on this page. So there are a couple of access controls. If you see, if you can look on the south side of 93rd and then the east side of Meridian, do you see those hash lines? That is access control. That means that wherever those hash lines are, that there cannot be a driveway connecting to the publicly dedicated street. And so in the review of the final plat, it's been recommended by the city engineer that there be some additional access controls on Sunflower Drive. Yeah, Brent, right there where your cursor is on the west side of Sunflower Drive. Yes, it's recommended that that access control be added. So you see there is other access control shown on Meridian and 93rd. And so the city engineer is recommending some further access control to help with traffic flow, to make sure that these areas with the hash marks, that there can be no driveways connecting to either 93rd or Meridian where marked. And so that, and then a couple of wording on the signature page on page 4, just some additional notation needs to be done for some of the signatures, really administrative things. So those are the changes that need to be made prior to the Mylar being printed. The Mylar, for those of you newer to the board, is a large copy about yay wide of the platting document itself. All of the signatures are collected, and then that is filed with the county, and that is what makes the subdivision a formal subdivision of Valley Center. And so all the signatures will be collected on the Mylar, and then that'll be transferred to the Register of Deeds office for formal recording.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, this will go to City Council next. City Council will also review it, just as you are this evening, and then City Council will have to vote to approve it as well. Then again, like I said, we'll collect signatures, and usually it's the engineer is the one that files that with Sedgwick County. Yes.
Ryan, just a real quick one. The traffic engineer is happy without a turn lane, coming in and out of that property. Everybody happy with the traffic issues at drive time?
So that is one of the issues that's still being resolved. The engineer did provide a plan. The city engineer is requesting some further information on traffic counts. Yeah. So again, that is something that the city staff review team, including the city engineer, Public Works, myself, that we'll have to review and approve before those final signatures are put on the plan.
We got current traffic counts, and we'll have traffic counts 5 years from now.
Right. Correct.
And that's
projected,
especially with growth north.
Definitely.
So that would be my only comment.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you, Ryan. Anything else? All right. If there's no additional questions, comments, based on city staff recommendations, public comments, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board, I make a motion to approve SD 2023-01. Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on. Next item relates to the same area, review of RZ 2023-05, application of Lou Robelli pursuant to City Code 1711, who's petitioning for a rezoning of land that is currently zoned RR1, which is the city's designation for a suburban residential district, to R2, which is the city's designation for a two-family residential district, and C2, which is the city's designation for a general business district. Property is currently addressed unaddressed, but located southeast of the intersection Meridian and 93rd. Ryan, please.
All right, so in conjunction with the final plat, the developer, in order to build the single-family homes, the duplexes, and eventually the commercial developments on this plat, there needs to be a rezoning, again, from suburban residential to R2 and C2. And I would reference the very last page of the staff report, which does show you a map of the specific zoning. So again, the C2 zoning will be for the lots that abut up to 93rd and Meridian, and then farther south on Meridian. And then the rest of it will be rezoned to R2. Now, per the city's zoning code, in R2, you can have either single-family homes or duplexes. It'll be up to the developer to decide what configuration will work best based on existing market conditions and other factors. But again, we're looking at 2 zonings. So what will happen is with a rezoning, how it works is it goes before you first as the Planning and Zoning Board. Should you vote to approve it, it then goes before City Council with a rezoning ordinance. And so that would be the next step for this, should you approve it this evening. And again, city staff does recommend approval. Public notices, the standard public notices were sent out in the mail, as well as to the Ark Valley News. And there have been no petitions or protests to the requested rezoning by the developer.
Duplexes.
Thank you, Ryan. And I think we'll go ahead and open the public hearing now at 7:16.
Oh, Gary, I would just note just another reminder for the board is that with the commercially zoned property, obviously with the residential, once the rezoning is done, once the infrastructure is put in, that the city can issue building permits for those houses, whether they're single family home or duplexes at that time administratively. For any of the C2 zone property, prior to construction, each of the, on any of the commercially designated lots, they will be required to go through the site plan review process. So that's just another review, as you know, with you as the Planning and Zoning Board, where we would look at the building footprint, again, look at traffic, where they want to connect driveways to publicly dedicated streets, parking, landscaping, all of that, all of those standards would be included in the site plan review. So once the property is zone C2, once we have developers that are interested in building commercial on the commercial lots, then we will have also that review through the site plan review process with the Planning and Zoning Board. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
No, thank you. That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this item? Assuming not. Oh, yes, sir. Please give us your name and address.
Joe Schaefer on 599 West First Street. I'm looking at the current map and I'm seeing we're a 2-lane road out there. Are we planning on doing something with the road to go to a 3-lane road with turn lanes? Because I see this becoming, you go down here to the stoplight at Quick Shop, 8 o'clock in the morning, between 7 and 8 o'clock, it's backed up in all 4 directions. I work at NIAR, and so I go straight down 85th, and I see how bad that gets backed up. So my question is, how are we going to alleviate the traffic so that we don't have an issue 5 years from now when we have a lot more homes up there? So are we thinking ahead as far as like wide expansion, going to a 3-lane or 5-lane road? Just a question.
And I appreciate that. And Ryan or Brent, I don't know if you want to try to address that or.
Good evening once again. And so, yes, of course, the city actually does have an idea, potential concepts for the roadway on Meridian, actually from 7th or McLaughlin North all the way to 93rd Street. We actually did apply for a federal grant for that section of roadway, actually turn it into potentially a 4-lane road with some traffic calming areas as well. That was roughly about $12 million. We were not selected to move on in the process. It was WAMPO funded. And so, that's something that we'll continue to look for some bipartisan infrastructure, bill money for. But those are things that we do have a concept and a cost estimate prepared. There just has been no formal entry into the CIP plan or any further grants that we've submitted for. But we have identified that section. We have a few ideas or concepts that we will market for towards grants. Of course, that's something that we're going to ask all the taxpayers to pay for. So anytime that you can utilize grant funds, whether it be Safe Routes to School funds for the trail side or the sidewalk side, to then parlay that with some stormwater funds, as well as some street improvements. So yes, always look at those opportunities to grow and expand and improve our infrastructure when it comes to roads in these areas.
Thank you, Brent. Now, the next opportunity for WAMPO funds is open now. And it's about the right timing too. So this type of development certainly adds to the cause. So
It's on our menu.
thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who'd like to speak on this item? If not, it's 7:20. We'll close the public hearing, turn the discussion to the board. Any questions, comments?
I guess I'd make a comment that, we see these plats coming in, with representations on the plat for single-family lots. And then we're going to start, and then the back door is rezoned to R2. And it could be all developed out as duplexes and with the pressure on the schools. So I don't have a problem with a commercial node. I think that's going to be appropriate as we see the city develop. And given the location, this probably makes some sense. But I'd sure like to hear some direction from the developer in terms of, is this really a duplex project?
Anthony Krejci with SEH. I'm here on behalf of Lou and the developer. So when we put this together, it was identified that there was all sorts of need for housing in Valley Center. So the split along Emporia between the east side and the west side is the split. The east side being your duplex size. Those lots are actually sized for duplex. The single family lots are on what would be the west side of Emporia Ave, which bisects the site. The two different splits are both zoned R2, just for simplicity reasoning of the residential district. In the rezoning package, it's one legal, it's one everything. But it's fully intended that the west side is all single family based on sizes of frontage and depths. And then the east side is all duplex lots based on the frontage and depths allotted. The kind of the background to that was, again, the need for those types of housings in Valley Center. It's about all I know from what Lou has told me. So,
Okay, appreciate that clarification.
yeah.
Brian?
Piggyback on Paul. So I forgot the numbers from last week. How many duplexes are planned to be built?
There are 126 duplex lots on the east side of Emporia.
So filled, that would be 252 families living there.
Correct. Yep, 252 separate units.
How many single-family homes?
Right off the top of my head, I think there was
70-something, I don't know.
76 or 78.
So 76,
I know we had to do a couple revisions on the final plat, so that's the reason I don't have the exact number.
so we're going to put 325 families.
77.
If I did my math right, I think it's 77.
So when you say single-family homes, they will not be privately owned. They will be rental houses that people will live in.
I mean, they'll be privately owned houses, single-family houses.
Now, when we had the last meeting, though, they said there would be two different owners between.
There are, yep. So the duplex lots on the east side are one owner, one developer, and then the
rental
single-family-
units, and then all the single-family homes will be sold to homeowners. If there's
Yes,
77 lots, theoretically, there'll be 77 different families own 77 different
Right.
houses.
Yep. So, yeah, so the west side is all owned by one developer, right? He's going to develop those lots, but then they'll each all be sold individually to private buyers. Yep.
And part of our inquiry here is, because we see more and more developers doing duplex projects for pure rental. They're not home owned. They're not. They're just one big rental complex. So that's where we're looking for some clarification.
Gotcha. To my knowledge, independently, the duplex lots are not planned to be leased lots. That puts a lot of overall long-term burden on the developer to do it that way. In this particular case, especially with the amenities of the proposed ponds in between, it makes way more sense to sell those individually.
Yeah, the water features are great.
Right.
The water features
Right.
in this project are great.
Oh,
They're gonna add, I mean, they really are.
to get there, trust me, I know. I
That's a positive.
designed it.
We're just, I guess, and these are 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom?
I don't know that I actually have that information from what the
Or-
architect has given me. Yep, they just gave us a footprint, no.
Yeah, I understand.
Yep.
And that's what we're reviewing today. But there is a nexus to how this thing develops out.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Anybody else? I think we're good, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, if nobody's got anything else, based on city staff recommendations, public comments, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board, I make a motion to approve RZ 2023-05.
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 4, review of RZ 2023-06, application of David Leaker, Leaker Real Estate Partnership LP, and Stephen and Cheryl Simon pursuant to City Code 1711, who are petitioning for a rezoning of land that is currently zoned RR1, which is the city's designation for a suburban residential district, to A1, which is the city's designation for an agricultural district. The property is currently unaddressed but located southeast of the intersection of Ridge Road and 85th Street in Valley Center. So I might make a quick comment before you get started, Ryan. And so I'm sure all of you are here for this item, and we're glad to have you here. So Ryan's going to kind of get us started and talk about what the item is before us. And then if we have any discussion with the board, then you'll have an opportunity to speak. So let me mention something first so you understand what the matter is before us tonight. And I'll be the first to acknowledge that I know there's more out there than this. The item that is in front of us tonight is a request for a rezoning to agricultural use. That is the only item that is in front of us tonight. You'll hear Ryan talk about it. Everybody knows there's discussion of a future use of the land. If there is a special use request at a later date, that will come back to this board. And at that time, we will talk specifically about that request for the special use. So I'm not trying to hold anybody back or leave you out of a discussion here, but tonight we are not talking about the future land use of this property. We don't have anything to talk about. So we don't have the ability to answer questions on that or discuss that specifically. So we're only going to talk about the request to rezone to agriculture. So Ryan, I'll let you take that from here. And then once you're done, we'll open up the public hearing.
Great. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that opening. Again, these 3 parcels of land were recently annexed into the city of Valley Center, and the property owners are requesting this rezoning. Again, when this property was brought into the city, its zoning designation per our city's zoning code has to closely align with how it was zoned with Sedgwick County. So under Sedgwick County, it was zoned rural residential. So when it was annexed into the city, it was given a RR1 or suburban residential zoning classification because that is what most closely aligns between county zoning code and City of Valley Center zoning code. And so based on future plans for this property, the applicants are requesting a rezoning of this time from RR1 to A1. I would like to review what is a permitted use for RR1 as it's currently zoned, and if it is rezoned to A1, what those permitted uses are as well. So you see this on the screen as well. In its current zoning of RR1, the subject property could be used as permitted uses are a single-family detached dwelling, a religious institution, a golf course, or an existing airport. Those are the 4 permitted uses that can take place without any other permissions from either the Planning and Zoning Board or City Council. Those 4 permitted uses are what is allowed on it right now. We also do, of course, since it is suburban residential, allow for the agricultural activities that are taking place on it at this time. It is field, they are being used for agricultural fields. That is a permitted use as well. If this property were to be rezoned to A1, the 4 permitted uses are again, single-family detached dwellings. And again, I would note that that's 1. So on each parcel, you could have 1 single-family home. A religious institution, a wind energy conversion system, which again are kind of out due to Sedgwick County's moratorium on wind farms at this time, or golf courses. So really there are three viable options that could be a permitted use under an A1 zoning. Given the nature of the future use, as Gary mentioned, there will be, if again the rezoning is approved, there will be a special use application which would address that future use. Tonight, we're looking at strictly rezoning the property, and under that, if that zoning does go through, only one of those four allowable uses would be allowed at this time. I would note that public notices were published in the newspaper and then sent to the surrounding property owners, and have received a number of petitions regarding this rezoning application. Those were either included in the staff report or have been emailed to each of you board members over the course of the past week since the agenda packet was published formally. City staff does recommend approval of this rezoning application with the understanding of the permitted uses that they would not have a detrimental impact to the surrounding property owners or to the value of the regional land. I'll stand for any questions. I would note that the engineer with the applicant is in the audience tonight, I'm sure be more than willing to answer any questions at this time as well. But again, thank the board for their time tonight and for everyone in the audience that's come to participate in the public hearing process.
Thank you, Ryan. Anybody on the board that has any questions, comments to start?
No, I think we just get into it.
Okay. Well, it's 7:31. At this time, we're going to open up the public hearing. So I assume, I don't know how many of you want to speak, but we're going to set a time limit of 3 minutes just out of respect for everybody's time. You're welcome to come to the podium. When I get started here, please give us your name and address. Here's what we would ask. Try, if you can, to not just come up and repeat something that somebody's already said, right? We get it that you're in support of that, but again, out of respect for time, it's not always a lot of value to hear this many people say the exact same thing. So if you've got additional comments that you can add, I don't want to stop anybody from speaking, but we don't always get a lot of value out of that. And so, I'll say one more time, our task tonight is to consider the zoning of this property only, and I'll reiterate what Ryan said. If a special use request comes forward for the future use of this land, we'll be back here again, and you'll be invited here, and you'll have the opportunity then to speak specifically about that. We have no way of addressing that tonight. So if you have questions related to what the future use might be, we have nothing for you tonight. And I'm sorry, if you had an expectation of that, it's not happening tonight. It's only related to the agricultural zoning request only. So hopefully that makes sense. With that, anybody here who's would like to speak on this item, help yourself to come up. Again, I'd like to have your name. Yes, sir. Or go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead. Name and address, please.
Gary, just so everyone knows, who is the timekeeper?
Brian's timekeeper, 3 minutes.
Good morning or afternoon, evening, whatever. My name is Dina Bushell. I live at 8020 North 63rd Street West. On that map right there from 77th Street, I am the first, second, third, and fourth property on that side of the street. Okay. Now, I will not address the sand pit at this point, but I am going to address your report. The packet that I sent to you included some information, including previous petitions requesting that these changes not be made. In item number 5, it asks the request by changed or changing conditions in the area of the subject property, and if so, what is the nature and significance of such changed or changing conditions? There are no changing conditions. There's no need for this rezoning to take place unless you're going to rubber stamp the requested change of use. Okay? There's no need. They can do what they need to do, except they can't have a sand pit. Okay? And again, I'm not going to go into that part of it tonight. I'm dealing with the rezoning. They want to build houses, they can build houses here. They want to build a golf course, they can build a golf course. There's no need to change the zoning. Okay. Item 10, ask if the request for business or industrial uses are such uses needed to provide more services or employment opportunities. This does not address, your answer does not adequately address the issue. This type of use that is anticipated could be developed somewhere else that does not affect local residents' property values, personal water wells, and quality of life. Yes, the sand appears to be there based on the reports, but it is also available in other areas. And it doesn't affect my property values. To what extent would the removal of the restrictions, the approval of the zoning request detrimentally affect other properties in the neighborhood? You remove this and they get the zoning changed and they're allowed to get a sand permit or a sand pit, my property values are going to go down at the bare minimum 30%. And any realtor who tells you otherwise is lying to you. There have been studies done. I gave you copies of those studies. And that information from 0 miles to 2 miles, anywhere from 30% to 10%. Okay, loss in property values. Everybody surrounding, and I guarantee you everybody in here tonight does not wish that. I remind you the existing designation does allow for the requested rezoning designation excluding wind energy conversion and anticipated sand pit special use application. Thank you.
If you can wrap
I have
things
about
up.
30 more seconds.
Go ahead.
I gave you copies of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission's intent to deny this request. They have done an end run around this by being island annexed into the city of Valley Center, and so that they can request this in hopes that it will be rubber stamped due to some glad handing. Okay. And that's my opinion. I'm entitled to it, and that's my opinion. I gave you the excerpt from the November of 2004 where this same type of request was made and again denied. Last but not least, as a member of this community who does not get to have a say in your position on this board, as you are all appointed members at the mayor and city council behest, whom I also do not get to vote for because I'm not in the city limits, I ask you this question. If this were in your front yard, what would your answer be tonight? Because it's going to be in my front yard. Okay? I sent you copies of this.
We got, thank you for the information you
Yes, my
provided.
my front yard. This is my front yard. I literally look out my door and 100 feet away is the change. They're asking for this change so that they can do the sand pit. And again, I request that you deny this zoning change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who would like to speak next?
Can we ask questions?
You sure can.
In the packet that you sent out, the petition that you sent out, I couldn't figure out when were the names collected. Recently?
Yes, sir. Since the notification.
So the petition names you,
Yeah, no, that's fine. Since the notification came out,
okay. I
we
didn't
have
know if-
collected, the copies that you have do not include the copies that Penny has received.
That's fine. I
Okay.
just was confused because we had information from the past.
I
and
have
information.
over 30 signatures.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No, you're good. Thank you. Just so it's clear for everybody, so you know, we do have representation on this board that's outside the city limits, and that's done purposely for when you get things like this, so that we can say that it's not just people living in Valley Center that are representing this board. So who would like to speak next?
Hello, I'm Pat Petrakis, 130 South Miles Avenue, Valley Center. I just have some questions. Number one, can you clarify why the city did an island and
Don't do that. As much as you want to, that's not going to help. So go ahead and finish.
and why Sedgwick County denied that application for the other use, sand pit use? And what is the time frame between when you can change zoning to this agricultural to a different zoning or whatever else might come in the future?
I'll answer your second question first, and then I'll let Ryan or talk about the island annexation. Just so everybody's clear, what the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission in Sedgwick County denied was the special use request, which is not germane to our discussion tonight. So we've got information, it's public information that's out there, but we're not going to discuss that tonight because we're not considering the special use of this property tonight. I don't know what's going to come out of this by the time we're done here with this zoning, but if it moves forward and then there's a special use request, we'll consider that at that time, but I don't know where we'll end up here at the end of the night. Would you be able to discuss, Ryan, the island annexation? Do you mind?
And I'll also defer to City Administrator Clark as well. But annexations can take place legally through the state of Kansas in multiple avenues. This annexation came to the city as a request from the property owners themselves. And so a property owner, whether they are contiguous, whether they butt up to city limits or an island annexation, can make that request of a city as long as they're not already incorporated in a city. So for example, someone that's living in Park City, that's actually inside of city limits of Park City, cannot send a letter to Valley Center and say, hey, I want to be annexed into Valley Center. That is against the law. These 3 lots were in the unincorporated area of Sedgwick County, and per state statute are able to request before City Council, before Valley Center City Council, to become incorporated into the incorporated boundary of Valley Center. How that process worked is because it is in the county jurisdiction and it is an island annexation, once City Council, Valley Center City Council passed a resolution stating that they would be in favor of voting for the annexation. That went before the Sedgwick County Board of County Commissioners. The county commissioners did review that resolution and voted to approve or recommend approval of the annexation. And then it came back to Valley Center City Council with an annexation ordinance. That ordinance received 2 readings for these 3 parcels of land. Once that annexation passed, it was published in the Ark Valley News, and these 3 parcels of land are in our now in the incorporated boundary of Valley Center.
Ryan, your time's up.
Hey, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
All right.
Hey, Ryan, I do have
Yes.
a question. County zoning, once it becomes city property, does it have to be zoned as a city code? I mean, zoning?
So again, and this goes back to the staff report, but again, when property is annexed into the city, it has to align, its new zoning classification has to align as close as possible to its existing county designation. So the county has, I'll tell you, the county has a lot more zoning districts than we do. We have a handful. They have a page of county classifications. And so what closely aligned was, again, going from RR, which is rural residential with Sedgwick County, to RR1, which is a suburban residential zoning classification with the city of Valley Center. So whenever property is annexed, I look at what its existing zoning is and try to align that with the closest matching district based on our existing zoning zoning districts.
So regardless, a zoning reclassification would have had to take place. So in this case, the owner requested agriculture.
Correct, yes. So the zoning request is to go from RR1, which is what it became when it became annexed into Valley Center, to A1, which again, so RR1, A1, those are Valley Center zoning districts,
Gotcha.
zoning district classifications.
Which is one of the reasons why we are rezoning.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Want to add anything to that? Okay, that's fine.
Sorry about that. I also wanted to pull up this map here, which you can conveniently find on the City of Valley Center's website at valleycenterks.org, along with a ton of information that's always available to the public. And so here is our area of influence map. This was changed and amended during COVID, and I think passed approved finally in 2021. Yep, 2020, 2021. And so, this showed our area. And of course, there's a lengthy process that this goes through with MABCD, and then with the county commissioners. And so this actually extended our area of influence, not our corporate limits, but our area of influence all the way to Ridge Road and all the way south to 53rd, and then all the way north to 109th. What that says is that basically at some point in time, this area could potentially become Valley Center city limits. That could happen in a multitude of different fashions, with one of those being an island annexation. So I did want to just clarify that, this was in our area of influence and our future growth area. Of course, next year in 2024, due to budgetary issues this year, is when we will start our review of our comprehensive development plan. So that comp plan gets updated about every 10 years due to the costs. That's not something that you do on a regular basis. So in the meantime, that's when strategic plans are implemented and take place. So did just want to let you guys kind of know, or the board know, that this area has been in our area of influence map for a couple of years and subject to annexation. So one of the other reasons, justifications that the commissioners were able to use with island annexation approval. And I'll defer to, we also do have our city attorney, Barry Arbuckle, present with us to answer any questions that you might have of him as well. So did want to recognize him.
Thank you.
One comment. The standard the county had to use, the county doesn't formally approve us annexing land. They simply say, in our judgment, this will not adversely affect the development of the area or another city. So that's really the finding they need to make, is that we are not adversely affecting another city or the area being the area around the area that we're annexing. That's the only thing the county resolved. And then the city decides, we don't have an objection from the county, so the city decides to go forward and yes, we do want to annex the land, and we can because we have the county's authority to do so because of this finding. That's all I wanted to add, if there's any questions about that clarification. Okay.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate that question being asked. That was good. Anyone else like to speak on this item?
Did I understand you?
Ma'am, real quick, can you give us your name and address, please?
Oh, Glenda Caruth at 8321 North Ridge Road. Did I understand you to say that their next application that they give will go through you? We will be coming back here, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I have something I want to say to you concerning it.
You will get that opportunity at that time. I mean, it sounds like that's their plan. Assuming they move forward with that application, you'll be invited back here. Yes, sir.
John Brennan, 3901 Palos Verdes Circle. My wife and I live about a mile and a half from the proposed property. I'm here to request you vote no on the rezoning request this evening, or whenever it is you make that decision. First, I question whether this transition of this change in zoning from RR1 rural residential to A1 is really a potential violation of the Valley Center zoning regulations. What I'm referencing is on page 46, under the description of RR1 suburban residential district, second sentence. It is intended that no uses will be permitted in this district that will tend to devalue property for residential purposes or interfere with the health, safety, order, and general welfare of persons residing therein. So as I understand it, prior to the annexation, this is one district, including the property and the surrounding and the county. The county had the county zoning for the properties around, I think with a few exceptions, was RR, rural residential. If you go to, by putting this, obviously the stated use of sand pit, and what I heard at the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission was also a rock quarry operation and rock crusher operation. Even though some say tonight the use is not pertinent to this zoning request, it is, because that's the reason we're here. And so I'm questioning whether this protection, by putting this, facilitating this zoning request, which is really an underlying to put in a sand pit and a rock quarry, violates that no uses will be permitted in the district that tend to devalue property. I think we've heard evidence to that effect. also about groundwater contamination, health, safety, trucks, traffic, every kind of 15 different negatives associated with this particular use. So I bring that question, and I wonder if you're the question, do you have a legal opinion that this changing this zoning classification is legal? It's consistent with
I
Valley Center regulations.
think I can generally answer that. And I know this is not what you want to hear, but I'm going to say it again. Appreciate what you said and the fact that we've talked about it already, that there's most likely going to be a request for special use. Tonight, if this board considers a rezoning to agricultural, that does not mean that we're allowing the sand pit or rock quarry to go in at all. It's only the uses that Ryan talked about under agricultural zoning, and I'm confident there's nothing legally wrong with that. That's all we're considering tonight.
Yeah, but under
If there's a special use permit that comes forward, your question is perfect for at that time. Tonight, it doesn't apply. I know that's not what everybody wants to hear. I wish it was different. We have to consider the zoning only. Tonight, there's no consideration for use of this land as a rock quarry or a sand pit. It's just not even there.
But be aware also, though, in A1 I read the regulations, and in zoning classification A1 and the Valley Center zoning regulations, there's no statement of intent that no uses will be permitted that interfere with these, create problems and property evaluation and health and safety. So really, I don't know if anybody knows this, under A1 zoning, that intent to basically safeguard the public interest goes away. That statement of intent is not listed in the zoning regulations under A1. So that's why I'm saying it is pertinent.
It actually does, because all they're asking for tonight is request to change the agricultural zoning. The property, as everybody knows, is being used for agricultural use. And I'm not saying that to try to create a smokescreen here for anybody, but it does. It complies and it conforms to what the zoning code requires for the use of agricultural. That's all we can consider tonight.
I disagree, but I appreciate that. The last is that it's only been 22 days since the
It has been 3 minutes.
Sorry, go ahead. If you've got one last comment, go
I
ahead.
just think it's been too short time here with, the question, the comprehensive plan is in the process of being updated. So is this zoning request in conformance with the comprehensive plan? It's difficult to say. Also, the zoning map out on the Valley Center website's out of date. So it's difficult for me as a public member to really look through this and assess the zoning request. And I think the other one is the zoning regulations don't really address an island, and don't appear to address an island annexation. So I'm really questioning, is this too short a time since annexation that the zoning request could be construed?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Sorry, Brian. Thank you. I forgot every time.
If there's a transition requirement.
Do you have a question?
Well, I guess I would have a question of city council. Is there with the way, when he cited that zoning regulation, page 46,
I haven't researched that aspect.
the question would be is there a transition requirement? In some cases in zoning,
I'm not aware of any, but I defer to.
yeah, okay.
to Ryan.
That would be my only question. I think that's what he's raising. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Yes, sir.
Joe Schaefer, I'm here for my ex-wife Brenda Schaefer, 8700 North Janus. My question is, if this does get approved, and I think this is what a lot of people are here wondering, especially the people that are north of 85th in that little neighborhood, can we possibly be annexed or pulled into Valley Center? Because now you're going to have an island of Valley Center out there. We're right across the street. What keeps you guys from jumping across the street and sucking our neighborhoods in and putting us into Valley Center? Now, we fought this back in 2008, something like that. We tried to make it West Valley Center. It failed, but then the city of Valley Center quit and they dropped it and we never did anything. So my question is, what's going to keep Valley Center from jumping across 85th and taking the homes out there that we wanted to keep as county? Because that's the whole reason they moved out there, was to be in the county. So that's my question to you guys. And I know that Brent Right.
So,
No, he can answer the question because I talked to him yesterday.
yeah, and I don't mind answering that, just so I understand, and we can certainly answer that question. When was the annexation completed? I mean, it's been, I don't mind at all Brent answering that question. So absolutely. Really, the item tonight has nothing to do with annexation, so I just don't want to get too far off track of where we're at.
That's going to be part of the question is what, if you annex this and you allow it to happen.
Well, this property's already been annexed. I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if you approve it for what it's going to do, what keeps it from being the neighborhood north of there being sucked into
Okay.
Valley Center?
I'll let them answer it, and I just want to be clear on what my intent was. I'll tell you real quick, sir, on my answer. Just real quick, and then I'll let Brent jump in. Our consideration tonight for rezoning isn't going to trigger anything to do with additional annexation, but.
That's one of the questions.
Sure, no, I appreciate that.
As a matter of state law,
Very, very.
it can't be annexed.
Can you go to the?
Is that neighborhood north of, on the other box? Yeah, north of, straight across the street.
Okay. As a matter of state law, the state statute says that just because we island annex a certain block of land, that does not allow us to annex the land that adjoins that annexed island annexation simply because it adjoins that island. We would have to bring in other property, let's say in his case, to the east of the present Valley Center limits that we don't have at this time. So the answer is no, we cannot bring in property north of 85th just because we've island annexed this one piece of property.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So unilateral annexation doesn't apply to an island annexation effectively.
No property around there could be annexed into it by what he's saying, right?
No property that adjoins the
island.
Just north of the island?
North, south, east, west.
Any side of the island annexation, the city doesn't have the right to unilaterally annex that.
That was my major question. I just want to know if any other property could be sucked into it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this item?
Rebecca Spivey, 8050 North 63rd Street West, Valley Center, Kansas. I live right by Dina. I have two questions. If this was to go ahead, I would like to know what the process is. Would you guys do a study like the MAPC did? Or are you going to use their study?
As far as for what?
If this goes and the zoning gets changed and they file a special permit, would you guys be going out like MAPC did and studying all this? Because at their meeting, they had pictures and everything like that.
Right. Ryan, you might be best to speak to that.
In order to hear on YouTube, we have to be close to the microphone. Sorry. So in answer to that question, what would happen is with the special use application, we will require documentation from the applicant. This was originally considered by their engineer. We'd require information, including an operational plan, site plan, other pertinent information as to how this operation will work in conjunction with the surrounding property owner. So yes, it's not just a single piece of paper that they file as the special use application. We will be looking to see a site plan, an operational plan of how and when this operation would take place, where it will take place on the property, a timeline of operation. So how many years are we looking at in terms of mineral extraction, information like that. I would also note that even if the special use application is approved by both this board and city council, the applicant prior to starting construction on the sand pit is required to get permits from the state of Kansas as well as ongoing monitoring as well. So we are one step in the approval process. But even if the special use application is approved, there are still other permits that are required from the state of Kansas for sand pit operations.
And I appreciate that, Ryan. I might add to that last part real quick, and I don't want to go any farther into it than this tonight, but those state level permits do include environmental impact studies. They would include things like impact to groundwater in the area. I can tell you there's a lot that goes into that. I'm not asking you to believe me or anything else. I'm just letting you know that Ryan's right. There's additional steps. If it happens to get that far that are in place to do everything possible to protect the people who are in the area. So.
And then my other question is if they do file, if this does go through and they do file the special permit, will we be notified like we were the last one, or are we just going to get to find out in the dark like the island annexation?
For the special use application, it will follow the same process. So there will be a public notice put in the Ark Valley News, and then everyone that received a letter for this rezoning application would again receive a letter for the special use, letting you know when the date and time of this meeting will be held. It'll be held in this room whenever the application is submitted at the next Planning and Zoning Board meeting. So yes, absolutely, public notices will be sent to everyone. Per state statute, the requirement, because this area is surrounded by the unincorporated area of Sedgwick County, everyone that lives within every property owner within 1,000 feet of the boundary of these 3 lots will receive a letter in the mail.
Those were my questions. And also, if you can't tell, I'm against this and I would like you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this item? Come on up.
Is Denise Spivey. My address is 8050 North, 63rd Street West. My question is safety. You mentioned on your panel that you have people living outside the city limits of Valley Center right now. Yes?
Correct.
Does anybody live anywhere in our area to see the current traffic patterns on Ridge Road when people are leaving to go to work? Anywhere from 6 to 6:30 on to 8 to 8:30. Has anybody about been run over by a industrial sized dump truck? Has anybody about, I guess what I'm trying to ask, sir, is does anybody live in our area who's familiar with what we already are dealing with right now?
Here's what I would tell you, and I apologize, this isn't going to directly answer your question, but you're getting ahead of talking about, so the request tonight to rezone to agricultural, that really does not apply this evening. I appreciate it, I understand what you're asking. I actually was in the area this morning. I don't live out there, but I go through that intersection quite a bit, so I see it.
As many of us do, we appreciate the additional arteries that the county has tried to help with, like Hoover Road. It has set up so now we can get on to 96. But I have literally been run over in the last 6 months twice. And we already have heavy traffic. And if you want to build homes, we're going to have a lot more people. We're going to have a lot more vehicles on the road. And that's only under what is zoned for now, sir. I'm just asking if this panel is even aware of what we deal with. And that's all I have to say.
Right. So here's what I would add to that, and I appreciate that. Just like we talked about with on the last speaker, if this moves forward, that would be one of the considerations also as traffic impact. Just like we talked about, I know it's not a good comparison, but the residential development up by the high school, this is no different. Traffic impact would be considered at that time.
I do understand that, sir. I guess what I'm trying to say is traffic could be considered a problem now, the way it is right now. And that's all I have to say.
And I appreciate that. And if that's the case, then it really doesn't even matter if we're here tonight talking about anything, honestly. But I get it. But that's why that needs to be added into the equation if this goes forward in the future. Our task tonight.
I understand your tasks, sir.
But thank you for I appreciate that. We do.
I really do. I just wonder if anybody deals with on a more than a once every few months basis.
I for what it's worth, I work in traffic engineering. I drive through that intersection multiple times a week, so I do get to see it, and I get it. You're right. I mean, This Brent showed the area influence, what's happening on Ridge Road. Things are moving that way. I mean, there's a lot of growth in the area, regardless of what happens here. There's a lot of things that are generating traffic. So
That is
I
true.
agree.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on this item?
Good evening. My name is Chris Mackelgan. I am here on behalf of Ike Clausen. He lives at 9125 West 84th Street North, and I'm also assisting Ms. Michelle. I practice at the law firm of Clinda Osterman, and I do appreciate, Mr. Jansen, your commitment that we all keep our powder dry on what there probably is the real issue here. And everybody will be back. And we'll get a full hearing. But I want to talk just a little bit in the few moments that are allocated. Is that I think we all need to appreciate the fact that these people's intention or desire to talk about these issues is driven by what the applicant filed. The applicant said that the only reason that this rezoning was requested is so that the owners can apply for a special use permit for extraction of raw materials. And so I do think that it's fair to take some consideration in your decision that you're going to ultimately, the only reason this is being done is that there's ultimately going to come before you the next step, which would be to ask you to approve a special use that has already been determined to be radically contrary to the property usage and the nature out there. And so I think that you can still factor that in because there's no other reason why we're here. We know why we're here. And we know why this application is being made. We'll come back and we'll talk about those other things at a later date. But in the few seconds that I do have is that I think you all appreciate now that your job's tough. Your job, citizen participation in this process is very important. Your job's important, all right? And you have to juggle a lot of things. But I think what you need to keep in mind, and I ask you to keep in mind as you vote tonight and as we go forward with this process, the protests that are going to happen after this, the different appeals and the other applications that are going to be before you, is that the quality of your decision is important, but to do it in a way that protects the perception of a legitimate and open process. So these people feel comfortable because what's happened so far with the annexation and different things does not make them feel comfortable. So I ask you, keep that in mind. I know you will. Mr. Wilson, I think you live outside of Valley Center. That's great. I mean, that's the type of assurance that these folks need. But you also need to keep in mind is they have no way of, these folks have no vote for the people that appointed you to this office. And so I think that, again, that should drive the consideration that you've given today. It's been great. But as you go forward, I think you need to keep that in mind. And Mr. Arbuckles did a great job because that one concern I had was the county did not approve or agree with the annexation. In what the standard was in interest of municipal comity, it was comfortable in saying, we're going to leave that decision to the fathers of Valley Center and not weigh in whether or not it's a good idea. So we cleared that up. I think another thing that might be helpful for someone to explain is we're going this route with the rezoning, and I'll be done in 20 seconds.
You're fine.
With the rezoning and then the special use permit application to come later. What is the standard? Is there going to be a different standard applicable to the granting of the special use permit as opposed to just this rezoning, number one? And number two, how does those standards change if they were going the route of a conditional use permit without a change of the zoning that was rejected in front of by the MAPC? Because there may be some significance as to what are the applicable standards. If there's no difference in the standards, then that's fine. But if there's a perception of staff and legal counsel for the city and the commission that those standards are different, I think fairness dictates that position be explained on some level because it drives the impact of your decision tonight. I appreciate you guys' hard work. I've been on these boards before. I know how tough it is to be a thankless job. Appreciate your time. Look forward to coming before you and if this goes beyond tonight and talk about the special use permit, which we all know is going to come. We all know it's going to come. So thank you very much. Good job this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Did you want to respond to any of that, Ryan?
Yes. So in response, had this property been zoned A1, then we would have be here with the special use application. But because it wasn't, we're doing the rezoning first. Now, the separate set of standards that we're asked about, they will be the same. So in this rezoning application, there's a review criteria where it says review criteria for a zoning amendment. The same review criteria apply to a special use application. So these same questions will be the ones that are addressed with the special use application. And then I've already addressed what we will be looking for with the special use application. So for example, an operational plan, site plan, information on the proposed future use, that is something that will all be submitted with the special use application form from the applicant and included through information in the future staff report, should we get to that.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Anybody else who'd like to speak on this item? Last chance. No, it's okay. I just want to make sure because I know it's hard sometimes. All right. If not, at 8:11, we're going to close the public hearing and return discussion to the board. Any questions, comments, discussion from the board?
I do have a question. So, and maybe this is for Ryan. So there's 3 plots on are they all used currently for agriculture?
So this rezoning application does include all 3 parcels of land. And how that works is on the rezoning ordinance, you are required to list the legal description. So that legal description on the rezoning ordinance will include the legal description for each of these 3 parcels, but it can be done as one application. Same thing that we just reviewed with the previous rezoning. There are a lot of lots on that plat. And so you can look at a single rezoning application with multiple legal parcels of land.
I guess my question is it's all currently agriculture, a wheat field or something, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, it's current purposes. Yes, it is used for agricultural purposes at this time.
Okay. And if we happen to deny this, they could still use it as agriculture.
Yes, it can still, yes, under RR1, yes, they can
It
still
can be
farm the
used as
property. That's
agriculture.
fine under suburban residential. We're okay with that, yes.
Is the applicant here?
The applicant's engineer is in the audience.
Thing to add?
Phil, I don't know if you have anything to add or not. Ryan, remind me. Sorry, I wanted to ask. Go ahead. Go ahead, Phil, and then I'll ask, Ryan. Go ahead, Phil.
Bill Meyer with Baughman Company, agent for the applicant. I think Ryan's staff report covered everything. I didn't have anything I could add. I was going to come up in the beginning and make the speech that your chairman did about, hey, we're just here for the zoning, and that was covered well. But I'm willing to answer any questions that any planning commissioners have. Sorry.
Anybody? Well, thank you, though.
Oh, yeah. Almost made it out here without.
No, you're fine. Ryan, you probably said this, but I wanted to ask, what happens regardless of our decision tonight? Does this go to the city council then for this zoning, or does this where?
For this rezoning application, if you vote to deny this, it's dead. It does not go to city council. If you vote to approve it, it does go to city council with the rezoning ordinance. You do have a third option, as shown on the agenda tonight. You can table this. So those are the 3 options that you have this evening as a board. You can vote to approve, deny, or table this application.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
I guess I have one, and that is that given the fact that we've had a lot of changes in state and federal regulations regarding environmental impact, and I'm not one that's standing up as being a champion for that, but regardless, there's regulations that are going to be applicable. to this. And I think, we have to be cognizant of that we're in a different environment in 2023 than we certainly were 10 years ago. And even then it was contentious 10, 15 years ago. So I think we need to, speaking on behalf of just myself, I think we have to be really judicious about this as a board. Yes, it's a simple rezoning application, but we know there's a nexus to it. But we just have to be cognizant that we have all the information. There's fair amount to digest. I think most of the members have gone through all the submittals that you folks have done, some 60, 70 pages, and I read every page. And I think a lot of the other members did too. So this is seriously considered, but I still, for this board member, I still have got some questions about, some of the, is there transitional zoning? Are there some other issues here that we may not have advice on yet? This is our first time we've had city council, our city attorney here. So but that's all I have to add and I do appreciate everybody that comes out. I certainly understand looking out your front porch at a mining operation. I think we're all small town people. We all understand that. So just, please understand we're not railroading anything. Okay, that's my comment.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else?
I mean, I can piggyback off what you guys said, and just as a strict zone change, if we come back for a special application later, that will be a completely different ballgame from what we're dealing with today.
Yeah, I agree.
Just piggybacking off what they said, if we're strictly dealing with a zoning application today, that's one thing. And if that special application comes in, rest assured, we're all going to take that seriously. And just like Paul said, I appreciate all the information that we were given. I read every single word of it, and I understand your concerns. And as the time approaches that's appropriate, I'm going to read every word of it again and take everyone serious. And I know everybody else is as well.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else?
I'll just say one thing as a representative here on the board of zoning and planning that's from outside of the city limits. The area of influence that we're talking about developing or changing as we continue to grow as a city. I'm part of that area that is not currently in the city limits, but I do think that the city has a good plan to improve the value of those areas. And I think that's something that we are considering with this rezoning is the request of the owners and as well as the value of everything going forward. Does this potentially offer some different avenues of value to the surrounding area? To which I would say it offers a different variety of land than what we currently have a lot of in our zoning area. And for that reason, I think it's a good opportunity for us to consider.
Thank you. Usually one opportunity really works best. Come on up.
I'm Pat Petrakis again. You mentioned, if it's pretty much a possibility, which actually is inevitable, that they're going to be asking for the special zoning allowance, then why don't we take care of it now and say no on that, so that we don't have to come back?
I'll answer that question.
And wait, one.
Well, be really quick, please, because everybody gets one opportunity, so make it quick, please.
They next develop into these, $500,000, $1 million homes, and that must be what you're probably talking about, the future of that. But in the meantime, people who live out there are going to be having to deal with, sand.
All right, thank you. I'll say this the last time because nobody wants to hear me say it again. The information, the structure that's before us of how this process needs to work, what's before us tonight, we shouldn't consider when we're moving forward here shortly for the request for rezoning of this property, I'm not going to consider the fact that it could be a sand pit in the future. It's not, in my belief, for what we're here for, is something that we should consider at this time. I don't see, I don't see, it's not part of the application at this point when they're requesting a rezoning. They're requesting a rezoning of the land. We don't have the ability tonight to hear, we didn't hear any information and about what this future use would be. So honestly, for the what might be the future property owner and user, I don't think it's fair that we would use that information now because we didn't have it. We didn't discuss it because it's not part of this process tonight. Any other questions or comments?
Just that Chairman's right, and that is that our legal process is that we have to, the special use hasn't been brought to us yet. But please be aware that when it does, it will be, this won't be taken lightly. This will be, we'll be on top of it.
I do appreciate all the information we received ahead of time and everybody being here tonight. There's no other questions or comments. I'm going to make a motion based on city staff recommendations, public comments, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board. I make a motion to approve RZ 2023-06.
Second.
The motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One nay. So Ryan, can you advise what happens next here since this request has been approved by this board?
All right, so again, just to remind everyone, what will happen next is on, sorry, I'll pull up my calendar. This will go before City Council on November 7th, the first reading of a rezoning ordinance for these 3 parcels of land. Again, the rezoning ordinance would be from RR1 to A1. It'll include the legal description of the 3 parcels of land, and the first reading would be at the November 7th City Council meeting, which will be in this room at 7 p.m. The first reading will be on November 7th, and then the second reading would be on November 21st. Following the second reading, the rezoning ordinance will be published in the Ark Valley News for official publication, and the rezoning will be completed at that time. Should the special use application be submitted, again, just to remind the board and everyone in the audience, when and if the special use application for a future purpose is submitted to the city, then public notices will go out again, just like for this rezoning. They will be published in the Ark Valley News, as well as sent to everyone within 1,000 feet of the property boundary of these 3 parcels of land. The special use application, should it be submitted, will first be reviewed by this board, by the Planning and Zoning Board, and if they vote to recommend approval, would then go to City Council and will be passed via ordinance as well.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? Has the city before they can submit the application? Or has it already been submitted? What is the timeline by the city council before they can request this?
The application deadline is usually due to state notice requirements that are found in the state statutes. We require applications to be submitted about a month previous to the Planning and Zoning Board meeting so that we have time to do the public notice in the newspaper, as well as send out public notice letters. And so for the next board meeting will be held on November 28th. The November 28th meeting would take place after the formal rezoning adoption on November 21st. So if the applicant wanted to, they would have to meet the application deadline of October 30th by 4 p.m. That's next Monday. That application deadline for the November Planning and Zoning Board meeting is Monday, October 30th by 4 o'clock p.m. Applications are required to be submitted to my department. And then if they wanted to, that application could legally be heard because the rezoning would be formally adopted at the November 21st board meeting in advance of the Planning and Zoning Board's November 28th meeting.
Thank you, Ryan. And again, everybody would be notified as they were tonight. I just tell you for what it's worth, we appreciate y'all being here. Even though with this action, I don't want you to think your voices weren't heard, because they were. I certainly was for me, and I think I can speak for everybody up here. And it was good to hear from so many people tonight. So we'll see what happens going forward, and most likely see you back here again. We have some other items to tend to, mostly as the Stormwater Advisory Board.
Rest of our agenda and then adjourn.
Right. But what I was going to say is, I mean, you're welcome to stay. I don't know that you're going to get anything but bored with the rest of this. It's going to take just a minute if people are wanting to go. You're welcome to stay. But assuming people are going to leave, we'll let you clear out here before we finish the rest of this.
Well, I was right on the border. Is that? I was right on the border. And it's not going to change what they can do there. It's not going to change.
Thank you.
Now they got, rezone south.
Maybe that wasn't the best
Yeah, like we said, regardless.
We're going to get going as soon as Ryan's done here.
I think for the, if we ignore this sand pit thing, have a house there, in the city, we feel.
Yeah, I should have told anybody if they had questions to. Go in here with the rest of the meeting.
That closes out.
Yeah.
It's got to go away.
All right, Ryan, do we have any old or unfinished business?
No, the only other business is at this time is just to remind everyone that our next board meeting is on November 28th after Thanksgiving. So I wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and thank you for your service. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. No new business. Anything else?
Nope.
Any items by board members? If not, I move that we adjourn the meeting of the Valley Center Planning and Zoning Board.
I'll second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Our next order of business is we're going to call to order the meeting of the Stormwater Citizens Advisory Committee meeting for Wednesday, October 25th. Roll call, please.
Gary Jansen,
Here.
Paul Springer,
Here.
Steve Conway. Here. Ryan Sheldon,
Here.
Rick Schellenbarger. Here. Scott Phillips. Here. Dalton Wilson.
Here. Okay, if everybody's had an opportunity to see the agenda for the Stormwater Citizens Advisory Committee, have any questions, comments, revisions? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the draft minutes from what was our first meeting on September 26th. Any questions, comments? I'll make a motion to approve the draft minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Ryan. Communications?
Paul Rodney.
Old unfinished business, and I think this is probably in response to some questions we had last time, correct?
Yes. Good evening, members. I did include in your packet a brief explanation and brief response to some of your questions that you had in the last meeting. I would stand for any questions. I included some information to back up my responses as far as our structural BMPs. I did include, we require certain levels of water quality and quantity from development, redevelopment sites, one of which is 80% TSS removal, total suspended solids. And then on redevelopment sites, we do require a 20% reduction of impervious surface and runoff on a redevelopment site from previous, how it was previous. I included some of the quality management standards from our ordinance and some of the pages through our manual to refer to those responses. I would stand for any questions on that. And then I also included some of the public education outreach. I included the current water bill insert that we use. We send 2 of those a year. We send those with the water bills. And then I included the most recent PowerPoint presentation, educational, that we send out to various groups within the city as a requirement for our permit.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't know what page it's on. I think it's one of the, right, back and right, that one right there. Are you contributing to the stormwater pollution? Could you scroll? The 4th one down, you rake your leaves into the street. If you answered no, you could be polluting your stormwater. We don't want people raking their leaves into the street, do we?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so that question is backwards, right?
Well, okay. Do you rake your leaves in the street? The question is correct because if you answer yes, then you're contributing to the pollution.
But it says there, if you answered no to any of the above, you could be polluting your stormwater.
Yeah, it's an
Oh,
opposite.
okay, yeah,
question is
you're
asked
correct.
opposite of the
Okay, I'll
rest
make note of that.
Yeah, we want no answers to those questions.
Thank you.
Good catch.
Good catch. Thank you.
Because I was going to start raking.
Katie.
Raking.
Awesome.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
He brought me on his toes.
And if there's we are on our Stormwater Citizens Advisory Meeting number 2 for 2023. As far as if we get down into, do we have any more questions on any of the responses?
Well, we have it where any like washing down your vehicles and what have you is not permitted.
It's
and
not advised.
Not advised.
That is not one of the permitted runoffs.
Okay. What is illegal? I'm trying to find it again, but there was something that was illegal for you to do. To wash down or something,
Well, so it is a direct violation of the ordinance. How you state illegal, I guess. Washing down of antifreeze or any illicit discharge washing into the streets or into the stormwater is a violation of our stormwater ordinance and our permit. So you can construe that as illegal or however you want to say it.
What I'm trying to get at is when we say it's in violation or what have you, how is that enforceable? And how is that enforceable? But more importantly, how is it reportable? Because we can't exactly call 911 an emergency number for something like that, which I don't classify as an emergency.
That's a very good question. So one of our goals is to inspect our outfalls during wet weather as well as dry weather. So we do dry weather inspections of our outfalls. So this is where anything is leaving our system in an outfall. Now, granted, if it's dry weather, if it's been dry, we've had no precipitation for several days, and we go to one of our outfalls and literally anything is running out of there, we better assume that that's an illicit discharge. That's not standard runoff, correct?
Yeah.
So at that point in time, it is it falls on our responsibility to try to track that back. We have to do our best to trace that back to where the source of that is. At that point in time, we can either find the source of that, remediate it at that time ourselves, if we can't determine who was at cause. If we can prove or determine who was at cause, we do, as stormwater officers, have the ability to cite those individuals to appear in court.
Okay.
And
so-
there are punishments
okay,
in line.
So
for
the burden of
such
proof
things.
falls on you guys to determine as
Yes.
to whether.
So
somebody
such as someone calls me up and says, hey, so-and-so is over here washing their car and washing suds in the street. Well, if I drive over there and they're not washing their car anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to catch them in the act.
Exactly. So some of that.
Okay.
So a lot of it falls on education. A great deal of this falls on education.
And the best ones to educate really is the children, because I tell you what, they hound the crap out of them.
Just like we stated in the last meeting,
Yes.
and my assistant and I have had
Acceptable.
conversations about this, and we may look into going and visiting the schools. It sounds like, I don't know.
I've got a question.
Frank Clark visited schools, and he had a lot of fun.
I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Is, could this be interpreted as you're not permitted to wash your car in the driveway?
It is frowned upon, yes. So what we would suggest is you wash it in a grassy area.
Okay.
Move it over and wash it in a grassy area.
That's for that land farming that KDHE loves.
Okay, just a question.
Yes.
And of course, there's different environmentally safe detergents to wash your car, and there's those that are not.
There are,
And,
yes.
yeah, so,
This is where the education comes in.
yeah, this is where, because I don't know if you're going to be able to stop everybody
Oh, no,
from washing their car,
exactly.
but I mean, encouraging them to use approved environmentally safe car wash materials,
So
and there
say
are some.
You wash it in a grassy area.
Yeah,
That
goes into your
soap
lawn.
and water goes into the ground. It filters down through the ground.
Right.
And the dirt itself filters all the pollutants out of the water.
Right.
By the time the water
Right.
gets down in, it's clean.
Yeah, and you surely don't want anybody dumping motor oil in the
No.
storm drains.
So don't you dare say solution to pollution is dilution.
Okay, I'm not sure if I could repeat it anyway, so I won't say that.
All right.
Thank you. Anything else, Sir Rodney? Thank you
No,
for coming by.
looks good. It's good work. A lot of effort put into that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the additional information.
Yeah.
Good job.
So, I'm sorry, if we're moving on to new business, then
New business.
Yep, new business.
Sorry, I lost my agenda.
it's quite all right. So if there's no other general discussion on the topics we had, the next item would be the next meeting date. Now, we have met our two minimum meeting dates for the year that meets our requirement through our permit. However, this is your committee. Next opportunity to meet would be November 28th, immediately following the Planning and Zoning Board. We do not have to meet at that time. This is purely your meeting. This is your committee. If you feel you need to meet before the next year, you're welcome to email myself or Ryan, and we can set a date. We can set an agenda if there's things that you would like to discuss. Any one of you are also welcome to reach out to me at any time with any questions.
I appreciate that. I don't know what y'all feel about it. I would throw something out as a thought, recommendation. I don't know that we're necessarily going to come up with lots saying, hey, we want you to come. I mean, now that we've gotten started here and had a good introduction, maybe look to the first quarter of 2024 as the time to come back. You've probably got some information in for us of what's happening on compliance, whatever, anything that's come up in that meantime. I mean, if anybody here comes up with something in the meantime they want to hear about, we could change that. I would say probably, I don't know that we would ask you to come back in the meantime. It's not that we don't like spending time with you. We also need to waste your time.
I appreciate that.
that sound reasonable?
But there's no expectation we're going to need to act on something by next month.
And if you needed us
And
to,
if
as
something
part of
comes
that,
up
then
that-
you would.
And even if something comes up that I feel may be pertinent to this committee, we may just call one just to inform you of things.
Well, and I think, getting us up to speed, I think helps quite a bit, which you just did. When I was with the county, one of the things I did is work on stuff for the debris management plan that they have for storms and stuff like that. And I didn't know if we had a component of that with the storm water and debris management as far as, we had where the stormwater system was overtaxed in emergencies because of debris, because of water, everything. It will clog the system. Lift stations can be overtaxed to the point they stop. So I don't know if we had something like that already in our plan to that point, but assuming worst case scenario, what is our backup situation? What backup plan do we have? Is one of the things that maybe, we could possibly have for a discussion at another time.
Yeah. Yeah, we will discuss that another time. Right now, I can say what our standard procedures are is we watch the weather. If we see that a rain event is coming up, usually we'll send our streets individuals out while it's still dry before it's raining. Check your inlets, check your culverts, get them cleared out, get them cleared. And then during the rain, we go back up because obviously you can wash things into the front of the culverts. We go check them again, keep them cleared, keep them running. And then that debris taken out, we have to track that debris through our permits. And then that debris we take out, obviously we disperse that properly, either garbage or through our very own brush and compost piles and things of that like. Because a lot of times, as you know, it'll be tree branches or leaves or grass or whatnot. And we have to do that with our 2 pump stations, our flood controls as well, on a pretty frequent basis.
We had quite a few calls in Wichita today about clogged inlets. That's what happens when you don't get rain very often.
That's right.
But it ended up being a pretty good flush.
Because when you don't get rain very often, all that debris that's laying around your yard, it doesn't get washed away until you get that heavy rain. And that's where it goes.
Thank you, Rodney. Anybody have anything else? Ryan and Brent, thank you for that, helping us navigate through tonight. It's been a while since we had this big of a crowd, so it kind of takes everybody here. Mayor and council members, thank you for spending the evening with us. If there's nothing else.
Gary, I would suggest, first quarter, is it okay if you go ahead and select a date as a board, just so we can have it for future public notice, just so we're ready for the public notice? Would you mind selecting? You okay with the first, January meeting?
Well, I don't know. Usually let's split the quarter and do it in February. How about that? Does that sound all right?
That'll be February 27th.
Great. I got time to get some things together.
We're going to expect something dynamic now that you got all that time.
Oh, boy. So videos and everything.
Yeah, whatever you got.
Right.
If there's nothing,
That'd be cool.
nothing else, I move we adjourn. A motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your being a part of this tonight.